Hi, everyone. Welcome to Flock Talk. I'm Erin Morgan.
And I'm Jordan Sloggett.
And we work for the farmer members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers Organization.
This week we are talking to Nabil Irfan, CEO of Farmers Hub.
Welcome, Nabil. Thanks for joining us on Flock Talk.
Thank you for having me here.
So, Nabil, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What led you to create Farmers Hub and what problem were you trying to solve?
For sure. So I actually moved to Canada in 2016. I studied at the University of Toronto, primarily economics and international development. And somehow I moved into tech. So I actually always wanted to go work for the World Bank and the IMF or an international organization, really work in less developed countries, just given my background coming from Pakistan. And since 2019, I've been involved in software. So I was reflecting on this question, and I believe there are three major life experiences that led me to actually building Farmers Hub. One is growing up in Pakistan, where livestock is actually 13% of the GDP. And every year, due to religious and cultural events, like I've been interacting with livestock, but in a very casual way. The second thing was actually working in Africa. So in 2017, I started working with farmers. I was in Africa for 4 months, and I was working under an international development organization. And I saw that, the problems that farmers were facing were primarily market problems, and they couldn't really be solved with aid. So, learned a lot through that experience, but didn't really know what to do with it. And I think the third very important experience was actually building a software company in Canada, which was aligned for the capital market. So I was dealing with securities and financial assets. And then I went back to Pakistan after selling this company, and I realized that, okay, livestock is actually an asset in itself. So, how do you trade it? How does it move? And all of these things kind of came together, and we realized that, okay, everything is moving online. A lot of farmers now have access to the internet. They have access to mobile phones. So why can't we actually build a platform that can help them trade livestock securely and confidently online? Mm-hmm. And there was really nothing in the market that was geared or focused on livestock farmers. So that's how we ended up building Farmers Hub.
So cool. So can you start off by telling us about Farmers Hub, just sort of the main objectives of it? How does it work? Tell us about the design of the app itself.
Yeah, so Farmers Hub is primarily a mobile app. We've crossed around 100,000 installs since we launched almost 18 months ago. And we have users coming in from across the world. So this is Asia, Africa, South America, and North America. And the goal really was, how do we help farmers make more money and build a business legacy? So it is a mobile app. And the vision was to actually provide farmers with an ability to start or create a digital barn. So you think about all of the work that they do right now, grazing livestock, taking care of their flock. We wanted to take care of the sales and marketing side. You have your business, how do we help you scale that? And the big vision that we have for Farmers Hub is that, okay, you come to the platform, you set up your online shop, your online barn, you start transacting in a secure environment, you collect ratings and reviews. So that really helps you build your legacy, your credibility, which you can't do on any other platform right now. If you think about Airbnb, very similar concept to that. And in the end, once you start building your reviews and ratings, like we can effectively help farmers build a legacy for their business. So even if they want to hand it off to their kids in the future, if anybody else is coming into the business, you still have all of that credibility associated with it. And so that's really kind of the main, the big vision that we have. And based on, all of these historical records, how can we provide additional services such as financial services to farmers as well?
Mm-hmm. So, Nabil, you sort of just touched on this, but with that credibility that is built into the app, but what are some of the other benefits specifically to sheep farmers over other options for breeding stock or other livestock sales platforms, like using like Kijiji or some of the other ones that are out there?
Yeah, so this was actually one of the big gaps in the market that we identified. A lot of the livestock was being traded either on Kijiji, so a classified as platform. You have Kijiji in North America. In Canada specifically, you had Craigslist in the US, so you'll see a lot of livestock listings there. Mm-hmm. And in Asia, there's a platform called OLX that people were using to actually transact. And in addition to that, I believe the other vertical or the other platform where a lot of livestock was being listed on was Facebook. And if you look at Facebook's terms and conditions, they actually don't allow you to do that. So they haven't been cracking down on it, but that's what people have been using just to kind of engage with the community. But the big issue after speaking to a lot of people in these communities, what I identified was that there was this huge issue of frauds and scams. So you'll see a lot of these groups, a lot of listings, but sometimes listings that were presented in a way that they're in North America. The guy's actually sitting in Africa, and all he wants is a deposit on the animal. And it seemed like a one-off thing initially, but after speaking to dozens of people, I realized that okay, everybody has been scammed. And that's the only way that you actually learn that, okay, not everything that you see on the internet is true. So that was one of the big things. And that's something that we have been working on in terms of Farmers Hub, in terms of how do we build verification processes? How do we allow farmers to verify themselves and build really a credible community where you can transact without having to worry about being scammed from somebody, thousands of miles away from you.
Mm-hmm. So that ability to not be scammed, that's a big part. But tell us about some other features of Farmers Hub that sheep farmers might use and find useful.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is compared to a general purpose platform, we provide a dedicated platform for livestock farmers. So when it comes to sheep farmers specifically in terms of breeding records, health records, age, weight, all these kinds of information or data points rather, that you would just have one empty form in Kijiji where you could fill out this information. Over here, we're really trying to include all of these data points in a way that we can actually use it to provide analytics, not only to the users, but to organizations such as the OSF as well, and even on the provincial and national level. So when it comes to sheep farmers specifically, you're looking at a very easy way of listing whatever flock that you have, whatever you're selling. And on the other side, you're effectively providing a very easy and intuitive way for buyers to filter exactly what they want.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Nabil, you've been working with our board of directors over the past few months to customize the Ontario version of the platform for Ontario sheep farmers. Can you speak to what sort of features that you've added for our members?
I believe the most important feature, and thanks to the board of directors for actually, for spending time with us to discuss this and for helping us get here, is effectively been the verified badge process. So whenever, as an OSF member, if you come to the platform, we're liaising directly with Erin on this. All you need to do is send us your Farmers Hub ID, which is a unique identifier of yourself within the application, and we provide you with an OSF badge. So every time you put on a listing, and even within your profile, anybody that is coming to it, they would be able to see that you are a verified member of the Ontario Sheep Farmers Organization. So that's probably the most valuable and important thing that we've started off with OSF. And in addition to that, there's been a lot of feedback that we've received in terms of, how do we actually make the listing process more easier? Are there any additional data points that we could cover, additional categories that we could include? And all of these things, it's some of these things have already been implemented, and some of them are a work in progress. Just to kind of elaborate on some of the features and functionality. Some of them I just already mentioned. In addition to that, what we're looking at is actually including inbuilt payment mechanisms to really providing a escrow service that buyers and sellers could use, to transact in a zero trust environment where the platform would effectively be holding the payment as escrow. And whenever the transaction is completed, we would be dispersing payments on both sides, on either side. Ratings and review, and one thing that I've been really researching and looking at and exploring, and I think I've mentioned this to the board of directors as well, is kind of including an AI component to this, where an AI-powered livestock assistant. So if you need any help with your flock, any kind of health issue, obviously it cannot function as a vet, but given just the vast amount of information that we have access to over the internet, how can we present that to farmers, in seconds, just based on a question that they type in?
That's really great. So One of the biggest concerns with sites like Kijiji is that trust factor. And you did talk about how we're going to verify our Ontario sheep farmers by giving them a badge, which is so great. And I'm so grateful for you for working with us on that. But there's also like a rating system, right? Where you can rate a buyer and seller. I think you mentioned that before, but can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it will work so that people can see a trusted or a verified seller on your app?
Absolutely. So this is, I think this fits in very well with the entire scam or the fraud issue that we see on Facebook and even just classified marketplaces. Because whenever you go there and you list an animal, nobody and a buyer that is looking at it, they can't really tell how long you've been in the business for. Are you actually credible? What's your history? Do you have any connections? Are you part of any organizations? Are you part of any community? That's just information that is non-existent. And so looking at that, having these badges or having this verification process in place is kind of the first step to build credibility on the farmer level. And then the second level of credibility is actually on the animals that they are selling through the platform. So, if me and Aaron do a transaction tomorrow, Aaron can at least go into the app and actually share this with the broader community. Okay, Nabil sold me, a bunch of sheep. And what was the quality? What was that experience? What was that entire transaction process? What was that like? And that is something that you can't find on Kijiji. You can't find that on Facebook Marketplace. But that is something that you can find on Farmers Hub.
Great. That sounds like that would be incredibly useful for establishing, like you said. So many farmers are walking into those situations apprehensive about who they're doing business with. And the internet's a great tool for linking people together. But like you said, it increases the chance of risk that they have to accept to do business. And it sounds like Farmers Hub is implementing some real strategies to remove that risk. Can you speak to how broadly the app reaches? For example, can farmers in Ontario advertise livestock for sale beyond provincial boundaries?
Absolutely. I mean, they can list it. When you list it, it's actually part of the broader platform where, we're aggregating listings from all across the world. Our vision with the app is that we're starting off with domestic transactions. That seems to be the low-hanging fruit for us. But, given how many countries are actually involved in the international trading of just meat products and livestock in itself. So the idea is that over time, we would be able to connect farmers directly to international buyers as well. And, the way that I look at this is that this is, livestock is perceived as a commodity in today's world. But if you attach a proper story to it, and which is basically the farmer in terms of how well he's kept his animals, how they've taken care of it, you're actually creating a brand for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that I guess is kind of the ultimate vision where every farmer, regardless of size, whether you have 20 sheep that you're dealing with or 200, can you build that brand and attach that story with you? And does that actually give you an opportunity to grow your business in kind of this digital world that we're living in today?
So if you're a seller on the Farmers Hub app, what kind of advice would you have to stand out from the rest, to increase the level of attractiveness maybe of your ad so that buyers really see it?
I believe the first thing is that if you are actually involved in any organization or if you're a member of any organization, showing that off is very important because that makes you instantly stand out. Even if you're not listing anything, even if you just simply have a profile on the app, that is probably the most important thing, that will give you instant credibility. And beyond that, whenever you're ready to actually sell something, adding as much information as possible within your listing is crucial. So we were actually looking at the data, and ads or listings that had a video as part of the listing had 2 times as many buyers reach out to the seller. Wow. In that situation. Mm-hmm. So, there's this huge thing. And in addition to that, something specific to North America or Ontario as well is that you do maintain records for your animals. Right. In many other parts of the world, you don't have that kind of information. You don't have that kind of data. But the more history that you can provide on your animals, be it vaccination reports, be it any checkups, anything of that nature, that just helps build credibility with the buyer. So, the more information that you provide in a succinct manner, I think would just boost your not only your credibility as a seller, but the opportunities that you can attract as a seller as well on the platform.
Mm-hmm. Nabil, I understand that there's a set price and an auction price discovery mechanism that's built into the app as well. Can you tell us about those two options?
Yeah, so we've been playing around with, how do we actually facilitate secure transactions within the application. So as you mentioned, there's one method where you can just set a fixed price. If I'm selling per head for $100, that's the set price, and that would be a very similar to any kind of e-commerce experience where you go to an app, a website, there's a set price, you like it, you buy it. The other thing that we've seen, and this is really taking from the traditional way of selling livestock to a sale barn, is this entire auction mechanism. So instead of having everybody to fuel up their cars, load up their livestock, bring it to one central location once a month, what if you could just do that sitting at home? If you already have that credibility and that trust as a seller, why couldn't you just do that sitting at home, where you set up an auction and people can come and bid on your livestock? And whoever has the highest bid, seller and buyer can kind of negotiate the terms and conditions of that deal. So those are kind of the two main ways to do it. And some of the feedback that we received from OSF also included, how do we actually collect deposits? And because one of the other challenges that we were facing was large value transactions. So any third party that you use, there's a cost associated with that. And just given the margins in this business, sometimes it might not make sense to transact online, using a credit card or a debit card, but rather we're looking at different payment mechanisms or different ways to do that. So from that conversation, I believe we also realized that there might be a need for sellers to accept deposits on any transaction that they're making. So if you're selling $1,000 worth of animals, you could take in $100 or $200, which would be held in escrow in the platform. And then once the buyer actually comes to the seller to take delivery and the transaction is done, both parties have reviewed and rated each other, we would kind of release the payment to the seller itself. So we're trying to find as many ways as possible to ease this transaction process, make it easier, make it cheaper, and make it faster.
That's wonderful. So, Nabil, we've worked really hard on this app, and we've had lots of input from the members of the Ontario Sheep Farmers Board, and so now it's available for download. How do farmers get started using Farmers Hub?
So if you have an Android or an Apple device, you can just go to your app store, search for Farmers Hub. You'll see a green icon with a white colored sheep on it. That is Farmers Hub. So you can download it from there, or you can go to our website, which is farmershub.io, and you'll find a link to download the app from there as well. I would really appreciate your feedback. Anybody that's listening to the podcast, OSF has been super helpful in sharing their views and giving their feedback to us. So if you'd like to reach out to me directly, you can send me an email at hello@farmershub.io as well with any feedback that you have, and I'll make sure to get back to you.
That's great. I know, farmers love giving feedback and giving their opinions on things. So hopefully you'll get a lot of great opinions and features, ideas and that from that. And speaking of that, looking ahead, what are your goals for the future development of Farmers Hub, and how do you plan to further enhance its value for Ontario's sheep farmers?
Yeah, I think the major goal is, to build a product, to build a platform where if you're a livestock farmer in Ontario, in Canada, or any part of the world, that you only need to focus on actually taking care of your business operation, which is raising livestock. And we take care of everything from marketing to sales to kind of building this entire e-commerce experience for livestock farmers. And then in addition to that, effectively, once we collect enough information on, historical transactions that farmers have gone through, we want to layer on additional services that we can provide. And this can range from access to financial services based on just your credibility, because if you can showcase that you've done $1 million of transactions over the past year, why wouldn't a bank be willing to lend you money to finance your inventory? That's something that's again another gap in the market that we see. Other things is actually building a community. So you think about Ontario sheep farmers, and I have seen how you guys operate. And what if you could actually scale this in a way where all of these things could happen in a digital environment, where you're sharing insights, you're sharing knowledge, and that's really what I believe the farming community, and it's just in their blood, it's in their ethos, it's how they operate. So that sense of community, how do we bring that online? How do we make Farmers Hub kind of the place where people come not only for information, not only for transactions, but really just as to find this sense of fulfillment in their business, because you're not alone. And at the end of the day, given where the world is going right now, I think this is also an opportunity to attract many young farmers to come into this world. They are digitally savvy, so I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to look at in that context.
Mm-hmm.
It all sounds amazing. Thanks so much, Nabil, for joining us today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Join us next Wednesday for our interview with Dr. Kim Schneider from the University of Guelph about her work with the Living Labs project.
Hey, Jordan, what's coming up on the Ontario Sheep Farmers calendar?
Ontario Sheep Farmers has a number of awards and scholarships. Our scholarships are open for students studying agriculture in university, college, or through an apprenticeship program. Please note also that shearing programs also count as apprenticeship programs. We also have various sheep producer awards that you can nominate someone that you think is worthy, including the Emerging Leader Award, the Outstanding Shepherd Award, and the Long Service Award. The deadline for nominations is September 6th.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe through your podcast app to receive alerts to our future episodes, and please share our podcast with your friends.
For more Ontario Sheep Farmers content, follow us on social media at Ontario Sheep Farmers on Instagram and Facebook, and at Ontario Sheep on X, and visit our website at ontariosheep.org.